Minnesota has never been known as a climate-friendly environment for vineyards and wineries to work year-round. That still has not stopped Minnesotans wanting to own and operate their own, persisting to establish 40-plus vineyards and wineries across the state. The very first vineyard to open in Minnesota happened right here in Hastings back in 1973 under David Bailly. The vineyard was always a passion project for David Bailly, and years later, his daughter Nan Bailly was one of 6 children he had, and out of all of them, became the most interested of all her siblings in the vineyard business.
So my father never really left his job. The winery was always sort of an affectation hobby for him. As the middle child, I took the most interest in what my father was doing here, and instead of going to college, I went to France. And I worked for a winery in the Loire Valley. I subsequently spent a lot of time working in other wine producing areas. I did a little stint in Germany. I did another stint in the south of France where I fell in love with red wines from the Côte d'Or. I did a little stint in upstate New York for a couple of years. So I came back to work here with my father, and my father ended up passing away at a very young age. So all of a sudden the winery was mine to run and figure out how to make wine and move it forward as a business, and I've been doing that ever since 1990. So figuring out how to make the best wines that I can in a climate that's not very friendly to doing that, but making a good go of it.
The vineyard itself is named after Nan's 4-time great-grandfather Alexis Bailly, one of the first fur trapper settlers of what would be Hastings back in the 1830s. David Bailly was inspired to name this vineyard after his ancestor as a tribute to the family's long-term heritage with the history of Hastings.
Being in a smaller farming community like Hastings allows the development of wonderful relationships with people because they're accessible to you. Our business has been here for a long time now. Now we're not a 100-year farm in Hastings like a lot of our neighbors are, but we've been here a long time. Having a winery in Minnesota is unique to begin with because we don't really have the climate for growing grapes. That never deterred my father. He was up for the challenge of trying to, I guess you could say, go beyond nature's boundaries. He was influenced by a lot of factors. One is the University of Minnesota had a program for developing more cold-hardy grape varieties, of which we grow many. We grow a lot of hybrids that were developed in France using Native American species. As a parent, that was an influence. And I think, again, my father's passion for wine and his love for hard work. It's really nice to be a part of a community where we get a lot of support from our neighbors. We get a lot of support from the people in Hastings. Again, my father really loved history, and he loved connections. So the connection with Alexis Bailly as a fur trader here in the history.
With Alexis Bailly Vineyard soon approaching 50 years of operation, Nan Bailly anticipates there will be a lot to celebrate in a year when the anniversary comes along.
We have been here almost 50 years. It's actually amazing. I think when my father planted the vineyard, he had no expectations of where it might lead. Some years I kind of wonder myself because the vineyard is tough. It's hard to grow grapes, and our vines are getting old. I've been through a lot. I've figured out how to weather an awful lot of storms here, both literally and figuratively. And I'm very excited about stepping back a little bit from some of my roles as a winemaker and possibly spending a little bit more time drinking my wine with my customers.
As the weather warms, Alexis Bailly Vineyard will soon find many more customers coming through the doors or making last-minute winter plans to spend time in their wine yurts. The vineyard will also have live jazz performances every Sunday again this year, beginning from May until September. For HCTV, I'm Theodore Tollefson.